Danny Cevallos is an NBC legal analyst and sometimes guest host for me on this program. Hey, Danny, thank you for allowing me to interrupt your day.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Smerconish, 855-486-1776.
Hey now.
But first,
all right,
it's Danny Cevallos.
Here's the deal. So Robert Pape is an expert on political violence. He's at the University of Chicago, and for 3 decades he has studied political violence. So they make an arrest in the Virginia case last night. Of course, I reach out for Robert Pape, have him on the program. Does this guy fit the prototype? I'm speaking to him a moment ago, Danny, about a report that he issued, having looked at the prosecutorial files of all 1,576 J6ers, 100,000 pages he and his colleagues combed through to find out, what you can summarize about each of them, yada, yada, yada. I say to myself, yeah, and they all got a pardon. And then I went and I pulled the pardon that they were offered on January 20th by President Trump. And I get to the language and I say to myself, wait a minute, if I'm Danny Cevallos, if I'm a defense lawyer for the guy who was arrested in Virginia, will I have a colorable argument that this pardon applies to my client? What's your reaction?
Michael, it's times like this that I realize I will never be more than a fair to middling criminal defense attorney, because when I first heard this idea from you this morning, I thought this could actually work. Now, if I were a Mark Garagos or a Chuck Peruto, I would be very confident that this pardon covers my client. But, I got to tell you, I've read the pardon, and in the last hour or so, my opinion has changed. And without I'll try to summarize it as best I can, but I think the most important limiting factor of the language of the pardon. Here's what's so interesting about pardons, Michael. They are one of the broadest presidential powers, one of the most unshackled, unfettered presidential powers. And one of the most significant about it, to me, is that there are no takebacks. So powerful it is that once issued, the same president cannot take it back. So I think that's what makes the language of the pardon so critical. And when I look at the pardon, I'll give you my broad stroke summary, which is that the pardon seems to apply to those then extant, those then existing, those then pending prosecutions. And because this is not a prosecution that was happening at that time, I don't think it would be covered. And by the way, the president has the power to pardon for crimes that have not yet even been prosecuted. Had he worded this pardon as, I pardon everybody who has or has not yet been prosecuted in connection with January 6th, we'd be having a different discussion. But the language of the pardon in its entirety either applies to specifically identified individuals or people whose prosecutions have either concluded with a conviction or are then pending. And by then, I think a court would say then means January 20, 2025, not December of 2025 or off into the future. And by the way, again, it's something the president could have done in the language of that pardon. And had he done it, he would be unable to take it back now if he saw that it was applying to someone that he didn't think was worthy of that pardon.
Grant a full, complete, and unconditional pardon to all other individuals convicted of offenses related to the events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Does the fact that, notwithstanding what you've just said, does the fact that this guy's bad behavior alleged took place on the 5th matter in this analysis?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if I'm the defense attorney, this is my most problematic paragraph that you just read, and it comes to those 2 parts. Number 1, the word convicted. Does the word convicted mean convicted as of today, or does it mean convicted forever and ever, amen, into the future to infinity? And then part 2 is, was the crime on January 6, 2021? If I'm the defense attorney, I'm saying, well, yes, it is. It carried over into that day. It was intended. It certainly spilled over into that day. It was affected. He's at or near the Capitol. I would make that argument. However, I can see a court rejecting it. I think that even if he intended for it to have its effect the next day, I don't know that that carries the day for this defendant.
I'll tell you what I would want to know. I would go back to Robert Pape and I would say, you studied all 1,576 prosecutions. Was there anyone at all? This is what you'd be doing, Danny. You'd be combing all 1,500 plus files and looking for that one case where someone was prosecuted for something, if this case exists, that they did on the 5th or the 4th or the 3rd in anticipation of the violence. If you could find that kind of a case where somebody was pardoned, that would be your ticket.
It might be, but Michael, I'm still troubled by the word convicted.
Yeah.
Full, complete, unconditional pardon to all of the other individuals convicted. Does that mean convicted as of January 20, 2025, or does it mean forever and ever after? And just to give you a quick example that I know you're very familiar with, I don't have the Jimmy Carter pardon in front of me, but I believe that pardon was of the kind that I'm talking about. Anyone who was a draft dodger, anyone out there, whether or not they were prosecuted. I could be wrong, but that would be an example of how this would be a no-brainer. But that language, the conviction, that's the issue for me as well as
well, okay, but I think what I would do if I were you is that maybe then you're not asserting this until your client is convicted. And now when he gets convicted in 2 years for being the pipe bomber from Virginia, now you say, well, all right, he was convicted. Now that he's been convicted, now you owe him a pardon. Maybe it's a timing thing. Maybe it's not right.
Exactly right. And in fact, what I might do if I took that theory, I would argue that you could make that motion today. And I would argue to the judge, yes, I know he's not yet convicted. However, under the laws of the universe and logic, if he is convicted, if this ends in a conviction, the end result is going to be the same. So why not litigate it now to avoid the waste of judicial resources that a trial would bring? If you determine this as a kind of immunity now, and while, someone out there might be saying immunity, that's kind of a stretch. Well, listen, the pardon power is incredibly, incredibly broad. And you can pardon prosecutions in the future before they've happened. The only limitation is that you cannot pardon future crime. And by the way, that might be the argument if this had happened on January 7th. I think that would be a different argument because that is in essence a kind of future crime. But you as long as the conduct has happened, you can pardon it. So yes, I think you're on to something there. I would not only make that argument after convicted, I would try to make it now and say, Judge,
I get it.
We're going to have the same argument in 2 years, or we're going to have it now.
Okay, Danny, you're not talking me off this ledge. I'm not saying that the guy's got a strong defense in all of this. But if I were Danny Cevallos,
I'd try it.
I'd be trying it. I'd be trying it for no other reason than to embarrass the fact that I'm getting prosecuted, but the guy with the horns who broke into the Capitol and so forth, like he gets off. How do you? This is not a legal question. I'm just going to float this out, and if you want to respond to it, you may or not. But how do you justify that the guys who breached the Capitol somehow are deserving of a pardon, but the guy who set the pipe bombs, but not him? Okay, where's that line? Why is the pipe bomber not?
Justify it.
How do you justify it?
Right. I will justify it, and I'll justify it in the words of our framers of the Constitution. What they should have been honest about is this. When they made that decision, and there were framers who did not want, I believe Gouverneur Morris did not want the pardon power. It was not a necessary power for our republic. But here is, if people are being real, this is the pardon power. It's unfair. By definition, it is unjust. I know that it exists to correct injustice, but no one could possibly argue that if the pardon power is exercised in a fair fashion. I can name on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, of people pardoning their cronies, their relatives, all kinds of people. So you, sir, when you ask me, is this fair? I say absolutely not. And in a way, that's exactly how the pardon power maybe wasn't designed, but that is the necessary way it works. It's now, yes, the Office of the Pardon Attorney, when it goes through that, they try to sift through the meritorious pardons and the not meritorious requests. But when it comes to the president, who can say, looking throughout history, that the president's unilateral use of the pardon power without using the pardon attorney office, who can say that has been meted out in a way that is uniformly fair and just? Of course it's not. It's never been fair and just when the president uses it. Sometimes it is, but not uniformly so. It's never been.
I love your analysis, and I think this is really an interesting issue. Really, really an interesting issue.
Me too. File the motion.
Danny, I wish
File the motion.
wish you all good things. I hope I see you before the holidays. If not, you'll be here's Danny, the first person I'm saying Merry Christmas.
Wow.
Wait, what's today? It's the
It's a
5th.
little
It's the
early.
5th. Yeah, forget
It's a
it.
little early.
Forget it,
Forget it.
Danny. Forget
Take it back.
Forget it. Thank you, Danny. Danny,
Thank you. 855-486-1776.
you heard the man. There you go. There's the telephone number.
He's the best.
He is the best. Gang, interesting, right? There's your cocktail fodder for the weekend. There's the value you just pulled from this show. You go to your Christmas party this weekend, and when you're trying to make a little conversation, you say, you know what I've been thinking? I wonder if the pardon that was given to all the J6ers could arguably be extended to the pipe bomber.
They have to give you attribution.
Yeah, give me attribution.
Yeah, come on now.
Please.
Don't take it.
Give me attribution.
Please.